Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles, and it's the second round of prize giving for the World of Warships replay contest, and today we're going to be taking a look at the cruisers. I have to admit that there were some real genuine surprises when it came to looking at the amount of damage that had been done in cruisers from the submissions that you guys had sent in. Pretty much everybody expected that in the destroyer category at least, it was the higher tier ships that we're going to be walking away with the most damage done, and this is in fact why I decided to put my hand in my own pocket and give out some prizes to guys in lower tier ships who did very, very well for the tier of ship that they were in. But when it came to the cruisers, well, the kind of ships that you would expect to be dominating a damage done contest, like the American tier 10 cruiser, the Des Moines for example, with its fearsome array of auto-loading 203mm gun batteries that have a combined rate of fire of 90 rounds per minute, we're actually getting out-damaged by guys submitting games in Tier 5, 6 and 7 cruisers. So there were some real upsets in the cruiser category, and that's what we're going to be showing you today. Incidentally, the game that does walk away with the top prize for the most damage done, which, remember, is a Pallada-class Soviet Diana cruiser donated by Wargaming, almost manages to snatch defeat away from the jaws of victory by getting just a little bit too greedy, but more on that when it happens. For now, let's take a look at some of the guys who achieved results out of all proportion to the class of ship and the battle tier in which they were playing. Our first match comes courtesy of Panzer Gandhi, love the name by the way, and he is in the Japanese Tier 6 cruiser, the Aoba. Now, I have to admit that when I first got my hands on the Aoba back in the closed beta of World of Warships, I really didn't like it that much. That's not that the Aoba's a bad ship, it isn't, it's actually pretty good. But I had gone down the American cruiser line first, and of course, you get the Cleveland, and the Cleveland's awesome. Or, well, it was awesome. It's been nerfed slightly. It's still pretty good. And I felt that the Aoba was a bit of a disappointment after having fun in the Cleveland. But again, it's not that the Aoba's a bad ship, it's just different to the Cleveland. It gets bigger guns for one thing. It has 203mm guns as opposed to the 156mm gun batteries on the Cleveland, although it doesn't get as many of them. It only has 6 guns in 3 turrets, 2 at the front and 1 at the back. The turrets are a little slow to turn as well, which can be a source of frustration when you're manoeuvring to avoid fire from a battleship and struggling to keep your gun batteries pointing at him. But because it's got 2 turrets at the front and 1 at the rear, that generally means that you don't have to worry about the turret at the rear having to turn all the way around to track the target when you change course. The anti-aircraft firepower of the Aoba, not particularly good, but not particularly bad either. But then again, it's a Tier 6 cruiser, and it has access to the defensive fire cooldown. There's not really so much about the raw anti-aircraft firepower of the ship as it is about using that cooldown at the right time to scatter the bombs and torpedoes of any attacking carrier player. Speaking of torpedoes, the Aoba's a Japanese cruiser. It has torpedoes, and they're not bad. The limiting factor with the torpedoes on the Aoba, however, is that they're located at the rear of the ship, which means that you have to turn your back towards an enemy in order to get a successful torpedo launch off. Something you should beware if you're ever engaged in a gunnery duel at medium to short range with an Aoba. If he turns around, he's not necessarily trying to run away. The first half of Panzer Gandhi's match in the Aoba is fairly standard cruiser stuff. He's taking pot shots at enemy destroyers as and when the opportunity arises, switching to armor piercing here to engage this enemy cruiser because he's the most immediate threat to him at this precise moment, and generally just shooting up whatever he can shoot at, as lit up by that destroyer up ahead who's in a lot of trouble. He's just been spotted and he's taken a lot of incoming fire. The carrier on his team is sending torpedo bombers in to engage these targets, but the team is looking a little weak on this flank. There's another destroyer spotted. Unfortunately, he's got armor piercing loaded here. And another destroyer spotted. The cruiser that he was engaging appears to have diverted his fire towards that destroyer. In fact, everybody's shooting at that destroyer. Oh, he's just run into the map border. Deliberately or accidentally? Who can say? That is a really, really annoying tactic. You basically can't hit the front end of the ship because he's not in the same map as you. Nevertheless, with the armour piercing loaded, the cruiser is the best target to shoot at, so that's pretty much exactly what he does. He has of course been detected, and there's an enemy battleship. Armour piercing loaded? No. It's even with 203mm guns, it's always best to fire high explosive at battleships. And so that's exactly what he does. He clears the barrels of whatever... Oh, he manages to score some Citadel hits with plunging fire. Okay. Well, that was quite lucky. Now with the high explosive loaded, he's peppering this guy's upper deck with high explosive shells, destroying gun batteries, trying to set him on fire, knocking out his anti-aircraft guns and his secondaries. And he's managed to set him on fire, using his limited anti-aircraft capability there to knock out a couple of enemy dive bombers. Well, interestingly, for some bizarre reason, if you look at the map there, you'll see that there are friendly destroyers and a friendly battleship near him, and the enemy carrier decided that the cruiser was the one to go for with his dive bombers. Oh well. Taking one for the team. Minimal damage sustained, didn't set him on fire. I think only one bomb hit, and he managed to knock one of the... Didn't even bother triggering his defensive fire cooldown. And managed to shoot one of the dive bombers down. So better that they're going for him than the battleships or the destroyers. Still raining fire down on this New York class battleship. And knocking anti-aircraft guns out. Swinging the ship around. Rear gun barrels are now facing. Forward gun batteries coming around. Sets him on fire. He's now burning aft. 3 different locations on a battleship that can be set on fire. Ideally, if you've got them on fire in one location, you want to try to shift your shots in order to set them on fire in multiple different locations. But with the New York turning, that gives him a bit of breathing space, and there's a destroyer here on very, very low health. He has high explosive loaded, the range is good. Very little opportunity for this destroyer to avoid his shots. He's too close. High explosive loaded anyway, guns pointing in that direction, and there's his first kill. Let's not get the marching band out just yet. There are still plenty of enemy ships out there. Again, still with the high explosive loaded, he switches his fire back to this New York. But there's another destroyer. It's another Clemson. The Clemson that he just sank did manage to get some torpedoes off, but whoever he fired them at, it wasn't fatal. Let's see if we can nail this guy. It's a good range to be firing 203mm guns at a destroyer. It's not close enough that the destroyer is going to be able, well, not a Clemson anyway, is going to be able to get torpedoes away. The Clemson has popped his smokescreen, although some shots did still hit him. You'll notice that Panzer Gandhi is varying not just his course, but also his speed to try to throw off the guns of this New York and the Aoba behind him. And it's mostly pretty successful. He's only really taken light damage so far. The New York is now lost in the smokescreen generated by the Clemson, but there were still some shots in the air, and he's taken a lot of damage. He's using his damage repair ability. He's trying to recover the damage that he's taken, but he is on fire, so he's losing health almost as rapidly as he's recharging it. He is just inside the Aoba's torpedo range. Let's get some of these torpedoes off. There we go. As you can see, the Aoba can only fire torpedoes in the rear quarter, so you need to be at least broadside on to an enemy ship. But those torpedoes are not going to hit, because the New York is varying his course and speed as well. Friendly torpedo and dive bombers going in there, and they did just pinpoint the location of the Clemson momentarily. But for now, there's a second New York class battleship up there, and it looks like the carrier on Panzer Gandhi's team is making this guy the centre of his attention at the moment. Friendly Congo over there, not fully upgraded. Oh, there's the Clemson. Okay, high explosive loaded. Rear gun turret pointing in that direction. Let's rip, scores a hit, sets him on fire. Selects his torpedoes on the starboard side. Goes for a wide spread. This is more really to scare him off. This kind of range you're almost never going to hit a destroyer with torpedoes, but with the torpedoes in the water it's going to keep the destroyer at arm's length. Unfortunately, while all this is going on, and while he's shooting up this New York at the back there, and the torpedoes are in the water from the torpedo bombers, have a look at the scores. It's not good at all, is it? They're outnumbered 2-1. It's at this point where Panzer Gandhi thinks, you know what, screw it. No guts, no glory. Let's just go for it. But first, we're going to kill this destroyer. And there he goes, his second kill. With the destroyer neutralised, he powers up the engines, goes full speed, and charges these two battleships. At this point, with this kind of disparity in the scores, and with the number of ships remaining on both teams, Panzer Gandhi was expecting this to be a defeat, and so he's just charging forward to try and get as much damage done as possible to salvage the most that he possibly can out of this horrific defeat at the hands of this enemy team. Now, here's the thing. When you are charging straight towards an enemy ship like this, it's much, much harder for them to actually score citadel penetrations on you. If you give somebody the broad side of your ship to shoot at, we'll see what difference it makes in a moment when he engages this Aoba at the back, but for now he's just pouring the high explosive fire from mainly from his front two gun batteries at this enemy New York, and the Aoba behind him is doing exactly the same, and that New York is done. Now, here it is. Enemy Aoba class cruiser on mostly full health. It's fairly even. He has now switched to his armor piercing ammunition. Now, if the enemy Aoba has any sense, and the enemy Aoba is able to fire all three of his gun turrets at Panzer Gandhi, and Panzer Gandhi is only able to engage this guy with his front two gun turrets, but that's not quite so bad. He's still able to focus 2/3 of the firepower on this enemy ship that the enemy ship is able to focus on him, but because he's steaming straight towards him, it's very difficult. Ooh, dive bombers coming in, trigger that defensive fire cooldown. He's hit. The enemy Aoba is firing high explosive at him. How do I know that? Well, he's set him on fire in two separate locations. Panzer Gandhi is firing armor piercing. And that's why he's going to win. Also, because of this Aoba, and we do have to expect torpedoes in the water because the Aoba had turned away, and there they are. Because this Aoba keeps trying to fire all of his possible guns at Panzer Gandhi, he's given Panzer Gandhi the broad side of his ship, which means that he's able to score citadel penetration after citadel penetration, and they're now inside secondary gun battery range as well. And there's less of a target for this guy to shoot at, and that was just inevitable. Enemy Aoba made two big mistakes there. First, he was firing high explosive at a cruiser, and secondly, he couldn't resist the temptation to turn broadside on and fire all of his gun batteries at a target that he could only see from the front. This meant that Panzer Gandhi was able to riddle his citadel with broadside on, armor-piercing shots, and he just couldn't do the same to Panzer Gandhi, even if he'd been firing armor-piercing. Shooting at a ship that's coming straight towards you, you're not going to penetrate the hull, it's just going to bounce off the sides of the bows. And if you hit the superstructure, well, it's going to over-penetrate, and there's nothing critical to hit in the superstructure anyway. Perhaps that's why he was firing high explosive, but either way, he got outplayed. And Panzer Gandhi just scored his fourth kill. Now, he's found himself an enemy carrier. Switch back to high explosive for this. You can get good results firing armor piercing at enemy carriers. If you're not so concerned about knocking out their flight deck by setting them on fire, and you just want to take them out as quickly as possible, armor piercing fired at carriers will sink them very, very quickly. As it happens, he's actually managed to score citadel penetrations even with his high explosive, although the damage potential of a high explosive shell isn't as great as an armor piercing shell. It's still nice when you manage to score a citadel penetration. And while all of that's been going on, have a look at the scores. I mean, there's still a massive point difference between these two teams, and Panzer Gandhi's team is going to have to sink every remaining enemy ship in order to win this match. But they finally have a very, very good chance of doing it. Don't forget, they were outnumbered 9-5 a minute ago, and the scores, or at least the number of ships remaining, are now even. Well, they were even, because he's just managed to nail the carrier with the torpedoes that he launched like a minute ago. So they're actually ahead, and have a very, very good chance of winning this. More dive bombers going overhead, but he has knocked out the carrier that launched them. And watch what he's doing here. Now he's engaging this battleship, and again, as he did with the Aoba earlier, he's steaming straight towards him. Now, because the majority of his gun turrets are located in the front of the ship on the Aoba, that's not actually such a bad deal. And he's varying the speed at which he's approaching this battleship. And this... The clever thing here is it's very difficult to judge the speed of a ship when it's steaming straight towards you. And it's even more difficult if that ship is varying the speed at which it's approaching. So you fire, you miss, you think, okay, those shots landed short, I need to lengthen my aim. But then the ship speeds up. And so the second barrage of shots that you fire go long. So you think, oh, okay, I'll shorten my aim. But then the ship speeds down, so your shots land in front of him again. And as you can see, this battleship He hasn't landed a single hit on Panzer Gandhi. In fact, he's gotten so pissed off with it, he's now changed his mind and he's shooting at something else. And there goes, well, he's already scored the High Caliber Award, and there goes the Confederate Award as well. And now he's close enough that he can fire torpedoes. The New York is quite manoeuvrable for a battleship, however, so he selects a widespread, and he just keeps up the high explosive fire with his 203mm guns. The battleship's on fire. Now would be the perfect opportunity for that battleship to riddle him with a broadside of armour-piercing shells and potentially do a whole lot of damage, but the battleship had turned away, so it was entirely safe for Panzer Gandhi to temporarily run himself aground as he turned the ship around in order to bring his torpedo launchers to bear. And now he's managed to get off the rocks, but here comes some more dive bombers. Triggers his defensive fire cooldown. That's going to ensure that if the dive bombers are going for him, the bombs that they drop are going to scatter and are very likely that none of them are going to hit, and that is in fact exactly what happened. And he's sunk another battleship. Oh well, it's all in a day's work, isn't it? From here on in, it's all just a question of mopping up the survivors. And he really does make it look easy. This guy's got no chance. None whatsoever. There are torpedoes in the water. He's burning. He's got no health left. Come on, Panzer Gandhi. How many kills can you finish this match with? There go his torpedoes, but this guy's going to burn to death. And he turns in towards him. He timed it perfectly, just as he knew exactly how long it was going to take for that guy to reload his guns and fire again. He turned broadside on, fired all of his 203mm guns, and just as he was reloaded and ready to fire, he turned in towards him again and dodged every shot he fired. And now it's just the last enemy carrier. What a turnaround. From almost certain defeat to an amazing victory. Carrier's on fire. He's doomed. There's just no way. Oh, he managed to put the fire out just in time to get some fighters airborne. That's just more experience and credits, isn't it? The fighters are no threat. In fact, yeah, please send the fighters this way. I'd love to shoot them down, thanks very much. Burning from two separate locations. He's coming under air attack himself. It's just a question of who's going to get to finish him off. Is it going to be Panzer Gandhi? Is it going to be the friendly carrier? Friendly carrier, by the way, got the Clear Skies award in this match. Did very, very well for himself. And I do believe Panzer Gandhi is also going to get the final kill. Come on. Come on, my son. Reload those guns. Take him out. There it is. So, over 500,000 credits earned, 7 kills, high caliber Confederate, well over 3,500 base experience earned, and 187,000 damage done. It's not enough to win the top prize in the cruisers, but it was such a well-played game that I have absolutely no hesitation in awarding Panzer Gandhi 2,500 gold doubloons. Or at least I will, the very second that the EU Premium Gift Shop sorts out the problems that it's having with PayPal at the moment, and actually allows me to give a prize away. But keep your eye open for that prize, which will be heading your way as soon as I am able to actually give it to you. Our second honourable mention in the cruiser category comes courtesy of Cartero here in his Murmansk, which is the premium Soviet Tier 5 cruiser. The Murmansk started her days as the USS Milwaukee, an Omaha-class cruiser, and was transferred to the USSR in 1944. It's available here in World of Warships as a premium Soviet Tier 5 cruiser. And the introduction of the Murmansk into the Soviet tech tree as a premium ship put a lot of noses out of joint because, well, it's an Omaha, except it's better than an Omaha. Well, of course it is. What did you expect? How's it better than the Omaha, Jingles? Well, the guns have 2.1 kilometers better range, and the torpedoes have a 4.5 kilometer better range. The torpedoes will reach out and touch you from a range of 8 kilometers. So, of course, everybody cried, "Oh, Russian bias," and, well, I'm not going to argue. But there is one thing that the Omaha can do that the Murmansk can't. The guns on the Murmansk, the ones mounted in the turrets at the front and rear and in the barbettes along the sides, they don't rotate very quickly at all. It takes them 24 seconds to rotate 180 degrees. And so what that means in practice is that you can do the Circle of Death in the Omaha in a way that is very, very difficult to do in the Murmansk. And what's the Circle of Death, Jingles? Well, you sail the Omaha up into range of the enemy ships, and then you start sailing around in circles while just unloading everything you've got from all of the guns. And you can do this in the Omaha and keep every single gun firing at the target. Because the gun turrets turn a lot faster than on... Hold on, watch out for that. Oh, never mind. No harm done. Yes, you can do this in the Omaha in a way that you just can't do in the Murmansk, because with 24-second gun turret and barbette rotation speed, the Murmansk turns faster than the guns do, and so particularly the guns mounted in the forward and aft turrets, and that's almost half of your firepower. You find it very, very difficult to keep them firing at whatever targets. So you can do the Circle of Death in the Omaha and keep up the firepower from all of your guns in a way that you just can't do in the Murmansk. Now, I'm not for a second sitting here and saying, and therefore the Murmansk and the Omaha are just as good as each other. They're not. The Murmansk is a better ship. But there are still things you can do in the Omaha that you can't do in the Murmansk. Speaking of premium ships, USS Marblehead over there. Yeah, this is a North American server game. The Marblehead, I forget exactly how it was given away. It was available in some form of package or another. It's another Omaha. A little bird tells me it is going to be available on the EU server as well at some point in the not too distant future. But for now, Cartero is going to give us a lesson in why it's always good to fire the right kind of ammunition at the right target. Tenryu class Tier 3 light cruiser. Load the armor piercing. Why? Well, because you'll do that. Multiple citadel penetrations. I can't tell you how, well I can tell you, in fact I'm about to tell you how much it winds me up when I see people on my team, I don't care if they do it on the enemy team, but when I see people on my team in cruisers firing high explosive at other light cruisers. Check out the Marblehead here, armor piercing loaded, good broadside, boom, there you go. One of the most persistent questions that I keep seeing popping up in the comments of any World of Warships video upload is, when do I know it's the right time to fire armor piercing, and when do I know it's the right time to fire high explosive? I'm sorry guys, there's no simple answer. There are no hard and fast rules. There are multiple different factors to take into account. You can generally do all right just by firing high explosive at everything if you're in a destroyer, well particularly if you're in a destroyer. But I managed to get some great results with the armor-piercing ammunition on the 130mm guns on the Soviet Gremyashki Tier 5 premium destroyer. It depends entirely what you're shooting at. I've slaughtered carriers in seconds by peppering them with armor-piercing from destroyers, when normally you would just fire high explosive at everything in destroyers. It all depends on a whole number of different factors. What ship are you sailing? What kind of target are you shooting at? How far away are you? What caliber guns do you have? And part of the trick of getting good at World of Warships is understanding all of these different factors and making the right ammunition choice at the right time. And if that sounds complicated, well, it is. But it's only really an issue for cruisers. In destroyers, you can fire high explosive at everything and do pretty well. In battleships, you can fire armor piercing at everything and do pretty well. Cruisers, however, you've really got to know what you're doing if you want to score big damage. Generally speaking, a lot of cruisers will fire nothing but high explosive at absolutely everything. And as long as all you're shooting at is battleships and destroyers, if you're spamming high explosive at everything while sailing a cruiser, you'll probably do alright, but you're missing out on the maximum damage potential when other enemy cruisers come into the equation, because more often than not your armor piercing is going to produce more results. But again, it's not a clear-cut case. All kinds of factors are involved. What caliber of armor piercing shells are you shooting at them? What kind of enemy cruiser is it? Some cruisers actually have a bit of armor, and depending on the range and the angle that they're facing towards you at, you'd be better off firing high explosive. Oh, Jingles, how do I know all of this? Well, you don't. You have to go out there and learn it the hard way. That's the thing about experience. When you need it the most is when you don't have any of it. Life's a bitch like that. Oh, alright, we'll try and make it easy for you. Watch Cartero here, see how he does it. He's firing at a Wyoming-class battleship, he fires high explosive. He's not going to penetrate the armour of a Wyoming with his 152mm guns, I think they are. And so he fires high explosive and he rakes the superstructure of the ship, because you're certainly not going to do much damage if you hit the armour belt along the side of the ship. Destroyer, high explosive. armor piercing will just over-penetrate. You'll do minimal damage. Even if you hit them, it's just going to go straight through one side and straight out of the other. Enemy cruiser, Phoenix class, light scout cruiser, armor piercing. Watch the damage he does to this guy. There we go, there's a citadel. Let's have some more citadels. There's the citadel hits you ordered, sir. Oh, another destroyer. Back to the high explosive. The high explosive will penetrate the terrible armour. I mean, destroyers aren't armoured at all. So high explosive shells will penetrate their hull, will explode inside, and will do maximum damage. You can probably penetrate the hull of a light scout cruiser like a Phoenix with high explosive as well, but high explosive doesn't have that maximum damage potential that armor piercing does. That's the trade-off with armor piercing. If you can penetrate the armor of whatever you're shooting at with armor piercing, then fire armor piercing, as long as you're not going to over-penetrate, and this is where it gets tricky. Because the armor piercing, if it explodes inside, will do more damage than high explosive, and you'll get penetrations of the citadel if you get the right part of the ship, like that. And that was, a minute ago, a full health Phoenix class Tier 4 light scout cruiser. And now it's decorating the bottom of the ocean. So, with the destroyers and the cruisers nailed, that Wyoming just ran out of friends, and Cartero's closing the distance on him. Now, he's going to get there too late to save this friendly battleship up front, who is just doomed. The second that Wyoming reloads his guns, he's going to finish him off. So we're just going to skip ahead to when Cartero starts to get seriously close to this guy. A couple of seconds later, Cartero's starting to close the distance. He's set this guy on fire, he's knocking out anti-aircraft guns, he's knocking out secondary gun batteries. The enemy Wyoming has just nailed the friendly battleship that was up front. And now he's bringing his guns to bear on Cartero, but Cartero is presenting as small a target as possible. He's not trying to broadside him. And he's still able to fire 6 of his 12 guns at this guy because of how they're mounted in the ship. The Wyoming is finding it very, very difficult to land a hit on him because he's presenting such a small target to him as he charges straight towards him. The Wyoming does manage to score a hit, but he's firing high explosive. How do you know that, Jingles? Well, he did next to no damage and he set him on fire, so... And then he turns the ship. This means the Wyoming can only fire the front 2 gun turrets, because the others are turning around, the midships and the rear turrets, and that he's just never going to bring them around in time. I thought Cartero was going to finish this guy off with torpedoes, but he didn't need to. The high explosive shell fire alone did the job. Now, Cartero doesn't escape completely unscathed, of course. The fires set by the Wyoming there are doing substantial damage, and it's going to take a while before he can bring them under control. His damage control ability is only just coming off cooldown, so the Wyoming has actually inflicted substantial damage to him by firing those high explosive shells, and he's continuing to do damage to him even after the Wyoming has sunk. But now he's managed to put the fire out. He's still got about half of his health. The thing is, though, the amount of health that he has remaining, 2 citadel penetrating armor piercing hits from either of those 2 enemy battleships will be enough to send him to the bottom. And those 2 enemy battleships, the Isuzushi and the Wyoming, they have 86,000 health remaining between them. The 2 enemy carriers are on full health as well, but we're not too concerned about the health of the enemy carriers. If you start getting within shooting range of a carrier, well, you've pretty much got him. The battleships, on the other hand, they're going to be an issue. Just depends how good they are. So, there's the Wyoming, and there's the Isuzushi, and they're both outside the range of even the Murmansk's guns. Except, hang on a minute, what's that spotter aircraft consumable down there? Doesn't that extend the range of your main battery guns by 20%? I do believe it does. The beautiful thing about this is that at this kind of range, these guys can't even see who's shooting at them. That's the spotter aircraft for you. And while you can never fire all of your guns at the same target at the same time, sorry, forgot how to speak English there for a moment. When you're in a Murmansk, because some of the guns are mounted on opposite sides from each other. Not all of the guns are in turrets, only the 2 at the front and the 2 at the back. The rest are mounted in barbettes, like gun sponsons, if you like, on the port and starboard sides of the ship. But if you're steaming straight towards a target, you can fire 6 of your 12 guns at, you know, whoever your victim is. So that's nice. And he's certainly making the most of this. I think his spotter aircraft has just returned. And there's the Confederate award. And he set this guy on fire again. He's obviously just used his damage control ability because he was burning quite heavily not so long ago. And it looks like he's just noticed. Here it comes. And he's missed. And he's missed again. No, he hit. He's knocked out a gun turret. But it's not critical. We're going to get it back in a very, very short space of time. He wants to be careful though. Well, this is a Murmansk. It has torpedoes with an 8-kilometer range. Yep, here it comes. He's turning broadside on so he can get all of his guns firing. And I'm pretty sure he's spamming high explosive. Because he's hit Cartero multiple times, but all he's really succeeded in doing is setting him on fire. And when you turn broadside on, you just make yourself an easier target for the torpedoes. He's seen them. He's seen them. He's not completely stupid. He does know they're coming, but he hasn't managed to avoid all of them, has he? So, there he goes. Now, we've got a Zuho-class carrier, an Izuzushi-class battleship. He's just set the Zuho on fire, which is nice. There's a Bogue-class carrier out there somewhere as well. He set him on fire again. You know, which is nice. Who's he going to go for? Is he going to go for the carrier, or is he going to assist that battleship up there with the Izuzushi? The battleship probably doesn't need the help. He probably doesn't need the help, but he can go for both of them. He's going to fire his guns at the Izuzushi, and he's going to launch his torpedoes at the Zuho. Or is it the Zuho? I don't know. That thing over there. Big floaty Japanese thing with a flat top. Quite surprised that the Wyoming hasn't sunk the Izuzushi there. But he's on fire. He's burning. They're blazing away at each other. That's not a bad ship, you know. I've got one of those. And, yeah, I quite like it. How are the torpedoes doing? He's sunk the Izuzushi. The Zuho has managed to dodge the torpedoes, but that's alright because he's got lots and lots and lots of guns. There's no way he's going to lose this fight. The Zuho could have run away. There was plenty of concealment there for him, but he chose to... I'm not quite sure what he's chosen to do, but he's going to die. And there he goes. So now, there's no way they're going to lose this, is there? There's only one enemy carrier left. And he was last spotted down in that direction. And the friendly carriers are trying to locate him with their fighter squadrons. But hang on a minute. I know I said there's no way they're going to lose this, but how much time is left remaining in this match? Ah, yeah, that's not good. The Bogue is not a fast ship, but he's had a lot of time, and there he is, to put as much distance between himself and his pursuers as possible and try to get into cover behind that island and force a draw. Now, I can't really criticise Cartero too much for this, because he has played a great game, and he gets a well, he gets a pretty good result. And high explosive is what you fire at carriers, yeah? And that's what everybody knows. But you only fire high explosive at carriers to set them on fire and put their flight deck out of commission. Under a circumstance like this, you want to do as much damage to them as possible, and that means firing armor piercing. And somebody did just hit this guy with a barrage of armor piercing shells and took a huge chunk of his health off. But whoever fired that barrage hasn't fired and hit as many times as Cartero has. But Cartero's been firing high explosive. If Cartero had fired armor piercing at this carrier, he would have sunk him. And the only thing that prevented this from being a draw was the heroic actions of the friendly carrier. You can see his dive bombers going in there. He hits the Bogue, he sets him on fire, and with something like 2 seconds to go before this match ended up a draw, the Bogue finally succumbed to fire damage and went down. This was in fact a victory. Unfortunately, I couldn't show you the exact moment of the enemy carrier's death due to the way that replays work in World of Warships. Unless you save your game quickly before the match ends, you tend to lose the whole thing and have to watch the whole match again. But trust me, the carrier was the hero of the hour and did sink that last enemy ship. 637,000, nearly 638,000 credits earned in that match, and he wasn't flying any signal flags either. The Murmansk is a premium ship, it earns more credits. And he managed to do 180,000 damage in that match as well. And this was kind of surprising when I was looking at the replays that were submitted in the cruiser category, because the overwhelming majority of the high-scoring games, they weren't in the high-tier ships. They were down in Tier 5 and 6. In ships like the Aoba and the Furutaka and the Murmansk and the Omaha. And that was really surprising. At least it was for me anyway. I don't know what you guys were expecting. So that's it for the honourable mentions, the runners-ups, if you like, in the cruiser category. In the next World of Warships video that you see... Oh, I forgot. Cartero, by the way, have 3,000 gold for your efforts. And thanks very much for sending that replay in. Wait, why 3,000 gold? The other guy only got 2,500. Well, those are the packages that are available on the North American World of Warships premium gift shop, I'm afraid. Not my fault, it's the pricing packages available in the various different servers. But the next World of Warships replay that you see will be the guy in the cruiser who did the most damage in the replay contest, and that will be coming up in a few days. But for tomorrow, we're going to be taking a look at Armoured Warfare, now that it's finally an open beta and anybody can play it, and following that, I'm probably going to be showing you a brand new Soviet Tier 10 Premium, although it's not going to be for sale in the gift shop, it's going to be a reward tank. A brand new Soviet Tier 10 Premium Medium tank, the T-22 SR, in World of Tanks. So plenty of stuff to look forward to over the next couple of days. As always, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Whatever you're playing, have fun playing it. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.